You're on.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Animal Services Center Board meeting. It's Thursday, May 28th at approximately 9:14. Please accept our apologies for being late. We've had some technical difficulties. David, do you want to call to, do we have a quorum, Mr. Dahl?
Madam Chair, you've called the meeting to order, so I'll call the roll for determination of quorum. Commissioner Gonzalez. Can you give us a thumbs up?
You're on mute, Commissioner Gonzalez.
No, he's unmuted.
Oh.
And then I'm about to admit Commissioner Ellens. Councilor Abeyta Stuve.
Here.
Councilor Gondra.
Here.
I'm David Dahlon. I'm the city's ex officio member, and I can make quorum for the city, so I'm present. And Commissioner Ellens, are you able to join us? Audio and visual? I know I had admitted him.
Dahlhan, it shows that he's connecting.
Okay.
Can we move forward, Mr. Dahlhan?
Madam Chair, we do have quorum. I feel like you can move forward.
Okay. Okay. So we've established we have a quorum. Next on the agenda, is there any changes to the agenda?
None.
Seeing none. And can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Motion made by Board Member Abeyta Stuve. Do I have a second?
So moved, Madam Chair. David Dahlon.
I have a second by Mr. Dahlhan. Mr. Dahlhan, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Gonzalez for approval of the agenda. He's indicating a thumbs up on the video. Councilor Abeyta Stuve.
Yes.
Commissioner Ellens. Commissioner Ellens. David Dahlon, I vote aye. Acting Chair Gondra.
Yes.
So motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. Dahlhan. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for work session minutes, Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley held April 18th, and the approval of the minutes of the regular ASCMV board meeting April 23rd. Can I get a motion, please?
So move to approve the meeting minutes for both.
Commissioner Gonzalez, is that a second? Yes, that's a second.
So motion made by Board Member Abeyta Stuve, second by Board Member Gonzalez. Mr. Dahlhan, will you please call the roll?
Madam Chair, this is for the approval of the minutes of April 16th and April 23rd. Commissioner Gonzalez, that's a thumbs up on the video. Councilor Abeyta Stuve.
Yes.
Commissioner Ellens. No action. I vote aye. That's David Dahlhan. Acting Chair Gondra.
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes carries 4-0.
Okay, next on the agenda is the reports and presentations, city and county ACO reports. Do we have Miss Ward? Good morning. Oh, you're on mute, Miss Ward.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So to do our report this morning, we're going to have William Lawrence, our officer, who's been doing our reports. If we could put him on video.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? So I will be presenting.
Mr. Lawrence. Good morning.
Good morning. How is everybody?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay, so I'll be reporting our April 2020 stats for Doña Ana County. So for the month, we picked up a total of 105 animals, with 88 of them going to the Animal Service Center of the Mesilla Valley. Of those animals, we had a total of 7 owner-released dogs. We had 0 owner-released cats. We had a total of 26 stray dogs, 37 stray cats, 1 care and welfare hold, 12 injured animals, and 0 miscellaneous holds. And last, we had a total of 3 rabies quarantines at the Animal Service Center, and a total of 9 at our own county court hold facility. And those were held over also from the previous month. So a total of 88 animals to the shelter. I'm sorry, the animals that didn't count towards the stats were 9 snakes that were picked up and a total of 8 dead animals that were impounded. So our March 11th through May 7th stray animal calls that were given to us over Central Dispatch. We responded to a total of 163 calls, we received a total of 163 calls for animal control and we responded to 64 of them. For the entire month of April, out of the 195 calls, we responded to 49 of them. I'm sorry, the first one was from March 11th through the 31st, and then the April for the entire month was 195 calls, with us responding to 49. Sorry for my confusion. For May 1st through May 7th, out of 40 calls, we responded to a total of 10 of them. So overall for the pandemic response, 123 out of 100 or 123 out of 398 were responded to, for a total of 31%.
Can I step in? Can you hear me real quick? I just want to say that was added because that was a
Ms. Ward, I'm so sorry. We can't hear you very well, so I'm not sure if you need to raise your volume or.
Can you hear me now? No? Okay.
Mary, it would be more your mic volume in your settings to raise that, but that might be hard to find depending on your setup.
Yeah, this computer's been having trouble with that. I just wanted to say this was added because of the request of the commission. So this was on the stray information through MRVDA, through the 911 dispatcher. So I just wanted to give you all an overall of the pandemic information in regards to the stray animals that the calls that had come into to the 911 system. So that's just to again give you an overall. So I just wanted to clarify that. So sorry, go ahead, William.
Thank you. So for our bite calls, we had a total of 12 exposures to humans and 2 exposures caused by other animals. For our quarantines, we had a total of 7 that were quarantined at the Animal Service Center. We had 3 home quarantines. 2 animals were gone on arrival for the human exposure. And 2 animals were gone of arrival from the animal exposure. So we had a total of 7 animals that were owner released into our custody. And the reason for these owner released animals, as requested by county commission as well, we had 2 animal aggressive they could no longer keep. 1 that was sick and injured that they couldn't care for any longer, and 3 just a general they can't care for their animal. and 1 for killing livestock. That's the 7 animals and the reasons why they were unreleased. For our in the field return to owners, we had a total of 19 for April. We had scanned a total of 120 animals. And of course, the animals that we don't scan is snakes, livestock, vicious animals, some vicious animals, and some dead animals that we aren't able to scan. Okay, so for our types of calls, responded to a total of 616 calls. Of those calls, 50 were injured animals. We had 6 cruelty calls, a total of 30 vicious animals, 16 bite calls, and for our field educated or we got compliance on a total of 8 licensing microchips and 20 permits, 7 for rabies vaccinations, and 40 for care and maintenance or other ordinance violations. Our court outcomes for April, we had 9 cases that went to court. Of those 9 cases, we had a total of 20 charges, totaling of 58 regular hours plus 6 hours of overtime. We had 4 guilty pleas, and of those 4 guilty pleas, we got a total of $212 to the local canine rescue group. We had 6 dismissed for compliance and a continuance of 10 cases. And that will be our stats. Do we have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. I appreciate the reporting and the digging in deeper with the other types of data. I think that's really important. So thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Gino, I see you're on the call. You're up.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I will present to you our April numbers for 2020, and I will see if my presentation will start. Please let me know if you can see my presentation. I'm going to keep it this way. I've been told that it works better in this type of slide rather than full screen. If anybody would like me to go full screen, please let me know. Whatever you prefer, right?
Gino, if you could go full screen, because just for the home audio, the viewing audience on television can see it.
So I'll begin my presentation. For the month of April 2020, we responded to 345 reported strays. Of those, 198 were GOA, meaning the officer did not have any contact with that animal. 147 of them were impounded. 120 of them were impounded at the shelter, 6 at the Animal Service Center. 67 were dogs and 53 were cats. We were successful in returning 27 animals back to their owner, and we had a total of 7 that were unsuccessful. And in my in future slides, I will give the reasons for those. We had a total of 34 identifiable animals.
Excuse
Yes,
me.
sir.
I just wanted to acknowledge for the record that Commissioner Manny Sanchez joined us at 9:28 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Dollar.
Commissioner Ellens is here as well.
I will continue. So our reported here is our 3-year comparison for our reported strays. You can see a major decrease from February to this month. And I can tell you that for May, this upcoming month, it's going to be even a steeper decline. But again, we had a total of 345 stray calls. And here is our 3-year comparison for our field RTOs. We had 27, and again, we're in a decline compared to the past few years. I do believe that this is all due to the pandemic and the circumstances and our responses that we're continuing during this crisis. So the reasons for owner releasing animals, we had one dog because it bit a family member, one because it was old and sick, one dog that the owner could not keep confined and was showing aggressive towards the other animals in the residence. Two cats, the owner was in the hospital and the family could not take custody of them or care for them. And we had 5 puppies, dogs with parvo. Last month we were hit hard with parvo as well. So it's that time of year. The reasons we were unable to field RTO, 3 for no contact by phone and the residence was out of Las Cruces. 1 address was in California, 1 was in Spring City, Kansas, and the 3rd was in El Paso, Texas. 3 were no contact by phone or at the residence, and those profiles were not updated, so we weren't able to make any kind of contact with them. And 1 was an ear-tip cat that was registered. The microchip was registered to the Animal Service Center. And here is my stray map. Hopefully it will work correctly this time. I'm going to go to a different slide. Can everybody see this? Now, I know that this has been requested many times. Fortunately, I'm at my workstation, which allows me to show this slide. We know that at Chambers, it's different permissions there. So because I'm at my workstation, I'm able to present this slide that I haven't been able to do for months. What you're seeing here is year to date. This is from January 1st to May 1st. This is the total number or the totals of animals that we have impounded. The blue represent dogs, the orange represent cats, and the small red dots represent other animals. For the benefit of my report, I'm going to go ahead and go to this month only, and then with your permission, Madam Chair, I will go back and do January, February, March. It may take a little bit for it to populate, but there we go. So again, the blue represent dogs that we responded to. The orange represent cats, and the red dots represent other animals, anything other than dog and cats. So if I pinpoint this one right here, you will see that it's a desert turtle. We responded to that desert turtle and we impounded it. If I go to here, this is simply a cat that we responded to, a gray cat that was impounded on the 7th. I will zoom out a little bit. If anybody has a question as to a particular spot or area that they would like me to pinpoint, I will more than happy to do that for you. Here's one that I think is interesting. This was a mountain lion call. We will respond to those types of calls for wildlife within the city limits as a public safety issue. We have been instructed by Game and Fish to, of course, not interact with the animal, but if we do see it, to contact them immediately, and then they will come because their agents or their officers are spread out in a bigger area than us. They want us to keep track of it and find which way it's going so that when they get there, they can do whatever they have to do to either tranquilize it and relocate it a lot quicker than them starting out in a particular area and not know where it's at. So any questions for the month of April?
I don't see any, Gino. And what I will say now is I'll hand over the facilitation of the meeting to Vice Chair Sanchez.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. I appreciate your help with this. So if there are no more questions for Officer Jimenez, we will move on.
Mr. Chair, if you would like, I'd like to do my January, February, and March mapping so that everybody is caught up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought this was it. No, very good. Please continue, sir.
Thank you. It takes me a minute to populate everything, but I will be right there. So again, you can see the numbers in January were a lot greater than the ones in last month. Obviously, we've gone through some issues, and we had a lot more stray calls back then. Again, blue are dog, the orange are cats, and the red dots are other than dog and cat. I can do it specifically by the breeds, if you'd like. This shows the January cats. This will show the January dogs. And finally, January others. The majority of these others, I believe, are going to be skunks. Let's pull this one up. Here's 2 chickens. I'm sorry. 2 chickens that were unrestrained. And you'll see the notes that we put in here. On this particular call, it was for a coyote in the area, and the officer was able to educate the caller on living with urban wildlife. Not to say that we will not respond, it's simply that we will put out some educational material to show them how they can reduce the chances of that wildlife coming onto their property. I'll continue with February.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes, sir.
This is Commissioner Sanchez. I just had a quick question. When you have a call like that, obviously you took the opportunity to try to, or the department took the opportunity to inform. At what point do you all ever call the USDA Wildlife Services?
On those calls, sir, we typically don't. We would only call them if the animal, the wildlife poses a threat to public safety. For example, years ago, we had a pedestrian or a citizen that was walking along Sonoma Ranch north of Las Colinas. And as she was walking by with her small dog on a leash, a pack of coyotes came out and tried to take her pet. In that case, we were able to get out there as quickly as possible. I was the officer that responded at that time. I called USDA Wildlife Services. They came out within minutes. Well, I should say in about 45 minutes, the agent was coming from Hatch, so driving time from Hatch. I kept with his instructions, I kept an eye on the pack that was that attempted to take the dog. And once they arrived, we trailed it, and they were able to dispatch it and remove it from the area. At that time, that area was barely getting developed, so they had still established their den there, and unfortunately, because of what the act that the coyotes did, they were dispatched and killed.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the information.
You're welcome. So this is our February numbers, our calls, I should say. You can see that up here in this corner, we were dispatched to the area of the Love's truck stop up on I-10 or Black Lab. This one was the same Black Lab, but on a separate date. If I click here, you'll see that another skunk that we were able to impound. And these are the calls that we responded to in March. Again, you can see that there is no one particular area that has more than the other. It is really, we respond to the city equally. Does anybody have any questions about the mapping that was requested?
Mr. Chair, this is Chief Chavez with Las Cruces Code Enforcement and Animal Control. Can I chime in on the map?
Please go ahead, Mr. Chavez.
I just want to let y'all know this is in a testing stage right now. This map will be available for public interaction soon. We will be adding in council district layers so each councilor can see where this is happening. So just bear with us with the current situation. Our development has been delayed a little bit, but our end result is this map will be publicly available here soon through the city website.
Very good. That's wonderful information. Any information you can give to the public is always good. So thank you for that update, sir. Are there any other questions from the board?
Chair Sanchez, or may I? Please come.
Yeah. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Gino. I appreciate that. I know this came as a request initially from the Animal Services, but some prompting from Councilor Vasquez as it related to feral cat colonies, those sorts of things. And I've appreciated you sticking with it and refining as we move forward. I think this is going to be really important for people to know where the animals are coming from, but good information, good data for you all to then do some of your interventions that you do anyway throughout the city. And so I've appreciated that. I do want to say how incredibly proud I am of the codes and animal codes and your staff. I believe Officer Baez assisted in a opportunity to educate some elementary students about snakes, and that was happening as the teacher doing Zoom and with her students, and sees a bull snake out there and calls codes right away, and he comes out and decides he's able to do a small presentation about snakes. And so there was a nice article in the newspaper. I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday when I saw it, but I want to get a shout out to you. I really appreciate that. And he seemed so knowledgeable. He was kind and patient. And so I just wanted to say that publicly. Thank you so much for doing that. And what an incredible asset I think that we have on not only the city, but the county with the work that you all are doing to manage and maintain safety of animals. But all the other extra things that you're doing, like presenting on Zoom for students and whatnot. And so much appreciated. Thank you, Chair Sanchez.
Madam Chair, Madam Gandara, I appreciate that accolades. And Officer Valles is very humble about that. He doesn't want a lot of notoriety about that. He he saw it as a teaching opportunity, and he's one of my better snake handlers, and he's not in any way afraid of snakes. So he took that opportunity to educate those children to make sure that they were aware, and I appreciate that, and I will pass that along to him.
Please do. Thank you.
And you bring up a good point as well. We are preparing because we don't know how long this is going to be, if this is going to be something that we're going to have to do from now on. We do have school presentations that we do throughout the year. We try to hit them early as school starts and towards the end of the year, because at the end of the year, the kids are a little bored of stuff. So we try to break it up with some presentations that we do. But we are looking ahead, and we're already trying to develop videos that we can send to these schools and they can use for animal education. So, and if requested, we can do Zoom classes as well. And we're bringing in our staff to teach them how to do these Zoom meetings as well.
That's great. I think any kind of education, especially as you've indicated, you know, how this might not be over anytime soon. So how do we as a city and county help participate in educating our community even further, and teaching people how to do Zoom, I think is amazing. I want to say that lots of us have had great difficulty moving into this era, right, of Zoom, and like just today, some of the technical problems that exist. So it gives us, for me, a newfound respect for teachers and parents that are trying to do this every single day with kids. And so anything that we can do to help minimize that, I think is a great idea. So thank you, Gino. Thank you, Chief Chavez.
You're welcome.
Mary Lou, thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments for Officer Jimenez?
Yes, Chair. I have one.
Yes, Councilor Betha Stuvey.
Thank you. And thank you, Gino. I really appreciate this in-depth report. It's really great because I am getting a few calls about cat issues. However, on the map, it seems like we do have a lot of calls with the dogs as well. I had one question regarding the cats, and if we're seeing this right now, when you get a call, are we getting just for the single, or are we seeing that uptick for calls that have a mom and her kittens right now? If we're seeing more of those being brought in, or if it's just for singular cats.
Counselor, we get them all. I'll be honest with you. Some are singular, and let me point out, if my map is still up and available to you all, if I point out this area right here, let me zoom in just a little bit. You'll see that this area is where I'm trying to zoom in.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's several dots there. This was an area where last month we responded to several times because there were several animals, several cats impounded from that same area. So each dot represents a single impound.
Okay.
However, if it is a mama kitten or a mama cat with a litter, we're still only going to put that as a one dot because they were all impounded at one time. So this is in the Mesa area. Again, no tags, and the cat was ultimately impounded at the Animal Service Center. But
is notation then, if it does come in with a litter, when you investigate there, if it does have it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
As we go through, and if I click on this dot and there is a litter, it will show right here in the notes section.
Okay.
So this one, as you can see, was a singular cat, but we were dispatched there several times.
Fantastic.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, and I appreciate it. And thank you, Chair.
And I will comment on what you said at the beginning of your comment. We do impound a tremendous more dogs than we do cats. The dots represent that, and even in Mr. Thacker's report, he will show that we impound a lot more dogs than cats.
Okay, anyone else from the board? Oh, okay, Mr. Jimenez, thank you so much. I appreciate your update.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Executive Director's Report on shelter statistics and activities. Mr. Thacker, are you on?
I am. Thank you very much for having me here. Appreciate it. Is my sound coming through okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Start sharing some screens. Okay. Maybe. There we go. All right. So good morning to ASCMV Director or the board, and also to you, Vice Chair Sanchez. I've been texting a little bit back and forth with Chairwoman Flores. She's glad that you're on, and also she welcomes all of you as well. So this report again is for April 2020, showing the current count at the Animal Center is 192 animals compared to 2019, we were at 489. And the biggest difference between those two, or the reason between those two, is because of the shift in impounds that we've asked Animal Care and Control, both county and city, to be doing. And they've responded, and we appreciate that, because we would be in dire straits without that shift in impounding. Our intake continues to be low as well. In 2020, you can see the difference there between dogs and cats. In 2019, you can see the difference as well. So in 2020, we have 330 is our total intake for April versus the 771. This is our outcomes. We did 49 adoptions, and you've heard me say that adoptions are going really well at the center, and that is true. They are doing really well. What this number is it's a finalization of an adoption. So we don't count it as an adoption until the animal's sterilized and everything is done. So all of these animals that have gone out during this pandemic and the different hours we've had, most of them are not sterilized because we have not been able to do surgeries. So these are not finalized adoptions. So you'll see an increase in numbers when these animals come in, and when we start doing sterilizations again on a large volume, then you'll see that number creep up. So that's why you see such a large difference between the 2019 and the 2020. Reclaims at 48, rescued animals 140. Thank you to all of our rescue partners that continue to take animals. They're being impacted at this as well. They're not able to do some of their fundraising. They're not able to do some of their other gathering. And also, people are not coming in to take the animals. So many of them are full, but they're finding room, finding new fosters, and we appreciate their help and assistance with that. Euthanasia 49, and so that's 82.9%. So our live release rate fell because our population's low, and so our euthanasias, as you know, the lower population and euthanasias you do, it affects it a lot more on that swing. So we continue to watch that. And again, our goal is always to have that 90% and above. But there are animals that we do need to have euthanized. That I know of, we are not. I can tell you right now, we are not euthanizing adoptable, healthy animals. These are animals that are deemed for the best for the euthanasia to happen. In April, we had 543 animals compared to the 2,171. It's a big difference. But again, the pandemic, we're limiting who's coming into the center. Only one person, and they have set appointments that come in. So that's why there's such a great difference there. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
And Clint, just to clarify, that was 543 people, not animals.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Bernice.
Clint, Commissioner.
Sorry, is that Commissioner Ellens?
Yeah, Clint, why are we not able to do surgery? What's the term I'm looking for? Why are we not able to fix the animals?
So during
Spay or neuter, that is.
when we were doing, or when we had the stay-at-home order and all that was happening, the vet board and also the governor called a halt on all elective surgeries, and that included veterinarians. So sterilization is considered a elective surgery. They are also conserving all PPE. So during that time, we were not able to do any surgeries at all, and also other veterinarians are not doing any surgeries. So since then, or since they've opened it up, so when we can do it, we have been doing it on a limited basis. Our problem is that we've had people on A and B shifts. So if somebody on shift A is exposed and gets the coronavirus, then we would have shift B come in and they'd have, and so I'm sorry. So shift A, everybody goes on a 2-week quarantine, and then shift B would have to cover it and vice versa. Because we've had those two shifts, we've been unable to put our surgical staff, who was implemented into both A and Bs, we can't get them back together unless we do a 2-week quarantine. So we're working on getting that together, but surgeries have resumed on a limited basis.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. All right, any questions for Mr. Thacker from the board? And okay, I see none. We're done. Thank you, Mr. Thacker. Okay, we're moving on to committee reports here. We've got up first, Mr. Dollahan, our Finance Committee.
Chair, members of the board, I'll turn it over to Amador Espinoza from the city's Financial Services Department. He'll share the monthly financials, and then I'll give a very brief discussion on what happened at the Finance Committee meeting and next steps on some things.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amador Espinosa. I am the City of Las Cruces accountant assigned to the Animal Services Center. I'm trying to call up the presentation. Here we go. No, I just lost it. All right, here we go. So we are presenting the monthly financials, unaudited financial statements rather, for the period ended April 30th, 2020. We're looking at the general fund, the statement of net position. That would be page 1 of your financial packet. Your cash balance is at $263,000. Your accounts receivable is at $4,000. 4,000 of that actually is from the city of Anthony, and 140,000 is due from Summon Park. Your liabilities are at $62,000, and your unassigned fund balance is at $206,000. On the same page, your capital projects funds, you have a restricted balance of $3,600. Looking at your change in net position, or your revenues and expenditures, your budget to actual parameter is at 83.3%. Actual revenues are at $2,353,000, and total expenditures are at $247,000. The parameter is at 81.4% for revenues, and total expenditures are at 79.3%. After transfers, you have a net change in fund balance of $28,000. If you look at page 4 of your financial package, that is your monthly trend. And so this graph is a illustration of your monthly trend. The revenue data points are in olive green, and your expenditure data points are in red. So you see the fluctuations going back month to month on this graph. As we mentioned before, expenditures that stand out would be most significantly would be your temporary services. They're at 99.9% budget to actual. As Director Ken Thacker had indicated, there were no contracting services for the month of April. So if you look at your page 4 and you look at your April column in your expenditure side of it, you see that there were no expenditures expense or charged to that temporary services. Another thing to note is that for the month of April, there were 3 payrolls that were posted for that month. This graph is basically kind of is a pie chart of what percentages are charged to the overall total expenditures of the 2,247,000. 75% of that total is all geared towards personnel, and then 11% are towards services, and 7% are towards supplies. Any questions?
I don't see any hands up. Board, are there any questions on the financial statements?
None for me, Chair Sanchez. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, quickly, we did discuss the need for a budget adjustment at the end of the, it'll be in your June meeting. There is a budget adjustment on your agenda today related to the acceptance of 2 grants. Clint will cover those later in the agenda. The other thing is that we'll put in the June meeting is a detailed request for additional funding from the city. I've asked Clint to provide details to increase the budget from the city's contribution. We need board action at the June meeting, but I would like to see those at the Finance Committee meeting next month, so we know what we can present to the full board, give them a cafeteria-like menu of options to present to the City Council to increase that funding. And then if that's approved by the board with a recommendation, then we'll take it to City Council in July. But finances are really tight. As continued revenue continues to be down, as you can expect, considering that we have so few people coming in for adoptions and so forth. But it has also helped with the fact that we're taking in fewer animals, though we still have to have expenses, primarily as Amador spoke of, personnel expenses, because we still have to operate a shelter. So that's where we are. We'll have more for you next month. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dollahan. All right, next is the executive committee meeting, or the executive committee update. And I know Chairwoman Flores is not on, and I will apologize because I didn't bring the notes. And so, Mr. Thacker, if you don't mind helping me along with this piece of it, I know during the meeting we did discuss a couple of items. Obviously, I think the one that we'll be discussing here during action items was the receipt of another grant that the team had was awarded. Was there, I'm trying to recall, was there what were the other big items that we discussed?
I think the largest thing that we spoke of for the longest is the city talking about bringing in the ASCMV as a department, and what would that mean to the county. So I think that took up most of the time.
Okay. I know we've had some discussion there. I recall we did it in the finance committee as well. So I know there was some discussions. I think what we were looking to do was the discussion around exactly having to continue on the discussions, especially within the different entities within the city of Las Cruces, and then also trying to have further discussions within the county. So we'll have to continue on, and that way we'll have further discussion possibly at a later date with the board. Other than that, I don't recall anything else other than we discussed the numbers, everything we've presented in your report today. And so I don't know, is there anything else we wanted to add to that?
Vice Chair Sanchez, if I may.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Chair Flores wanted me to just bring up, and I will need some assistance from Mr. Dollahan, but the city did move through a work session. We had one on May 11, 2020. It was to discuss the city obviously taking over the animal services of Mesilla Valley. There was actually an excellent presentation done by Mr. Dollahan. Mr. Thacker was on this call as well. And so it was, so basically for those of us that are new to the animal services board, the Animal Services Center is a joint powers entity between the city of Las Cruces and Doña Ana County since 2008. ASCMV was housed with the city-owned building and a general obligation bond financed and expanded to a second building, or will be, in 2021. And so there was lots of discussion about what the joint powers of agreement talks about, back in, gosh, I don't remember, 2015, 2016, we meaning the city had a joint meeting with the county, looking at the possibilities of taking on the Animal Services Center. I think the discussion then was about in a couple of phases. And so doing that and then what is the possibility in terms of obviously financing, but second with the county's animal codes personnel. And so we had, again, lots of discussion about that. It feels like that the council is in agreement to move to working on, I want to say, having a second joint meeting with the county, but really moving towards moving the Animal Services Center into the city. Mr. Dollahan, do you have anything you want to add, as you were so much more eloquent than I am now about the presentation and the various things? And I'm like feverishly looking for my notes and whatnot and can't seem to find very many as it relates to the particular meeting. Oh, you're on mute, Mr. Dollahan.
Sorry, I just did the reverse of what I meant to do. Mr. Chair, Councilor Gonda, I think you did a really good job on a detailed discussion that we had with council. I have shared our comments and the PowerPoint that was done on May 11th with my counterpart, Chuck McMahon, and Janine Quintero from county staff, with a request to have further discussion based on the council's direction. I believe Mr. McMahon told me that he passed it on to County Manager Macias for the next steps. We do need to, for the joint discussion at a staff level for the ASCMV transition, there are some items based on council's discussion that I need to circle back with ASCMV and city staff on, a detailed list, primarily looking at what is our minimal amount of staffing with a minimal number of animals in the center, and then we can look for an adjustment based on that. And if we also need to evaluate if there's different cost centers based on breed of animals, cats versus dogs, small dogs versus large dogs. So we still have to work on that. And then I believe we will make a formal request to the county from the city manager's office to start discussions formally with the county staff on next steps related to the joint powers agreement. As to scheduling a joint session with the two governing bodies, then we'll defer to the county manager. Meeting now is a little difficult because we're Zooming everything, at least on the city side is. I know the county commission is meeting live with no in-person audiences, or they were. I don't know that's still true. So more to come. I can share the PowerPoint with the rest of the ASCMV board members. If you give me a few minutes, I'll email it to you. And it is later on discussion in the agenda.
Good, yes. Oh, good. So I was going to recommend sharing the presentation with the board members, specifically the county board members, and the notes. I think that would be really helpful for them to understand sort of from our perspective what we were discussing, how we'd like to move forward. As you were speaking, all of that was coming back in terms of, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember we spoke of a fee, not just a general fee, but a fee. Is small breed versus large breed? What does that look like? Also the GEO bond that we passed and specific to the city residents, and the reason really that we're able to get that second building, and how do we specifically tie that into the fee that we will be asking the county for. And so I just wanted to bring that up as Councilor Flores or Chair Flores wanted me to bring that up as part of the executive committee report. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Mr. Dallahan. I appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on to the Facilities Committee. Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
Yes, thank you. We did have a virtual facility meeting on 5/7/2020. It was Clint and I. Thank you for Clint for scheduling that Zoom meeting and sort of taking me through the facility at the various areas and whatnot, and basically a lot of the conversations stem from the renovations that are currently occurring as it relates to the HVAC system. I do have my notes here, so as I was putting the video on off, I ran to my room to get the notebook. But simply, let's see, at that point earlier in the month, the offices were vacant and working from home. There's some change to the back parking lot. And Clint, you can help me better speak to this space. I think just basically there's been some movement of moving things out in where the HVAC system is being worked on. Looking to, at that point, they adopted pet space, was being cleaned, and getting all that squared away. You spoke a lot of kudos to Michelle Monet from APA picking 17 cats at that point in time, and moving them out of the center and looking to caring for them, but also finding forever homes. Ha ha ha. Did you get that? Forever homes. Okay, let's see. Obviously, you can tell I take sketchy notes. I think what I was very impressed about was the adopting sort of the governor's mandates in terms of the 6 feet and the kinds of cleaning that is supposed to take place. And just really adhering to that. And appreciated that. At that point, the small breed room HVAC system was all done. It's proving to be good. You're now help me out, Clint, at where the kennels are, the stray kennels are, where the HVAC system was going to start. You were cleaning that out and getting it prepared so the HVAC system begins.
Yeah, you've had to do a continual rotation process of whenever the construction workers move in on top of the building, when they move in over it, we've had to take the animals out, the dogs out. And so then when the dogs are out, they can do the stuff inside where they're ripping out all of the air ducts that are going down the middle. They rip those out and install new ones. So it's quite the process. Luckily, again, it's with our numbers being so low, we're able to easily move these animals into different areas. And then the other advantage is when they're done with the HVAC project, we're able to go in there and scrub and scrub and scrub and have a good base to start in. So it's working really well. I believe we have 2 more kennels that we're going to be, rotating through, and we'll be done. I've requested a completion date from the city project person who's in charge, but I haven't heard back from him yet. But I know it's here in a couple months. We'll have something done.
Hopefully in July. Yes.
No. Somewhere there. I can't. The really cool thing about this project is one of the most expensive is they put in air scrubbers in each intake and outtake. So everything coming in is getting scrubbed or cleaned, and everything coming out is also goes through the scrubber. They're very expensive. They're kind of state of the art stuff. So we're excited to have those.
It really is going to make a difference of what happens in there in the center, and sort of making sure that, I guess, the air and whatnot is being circulated the way it's supposed to, the way it's intended. And so I'm real excited about this particular renovation. Kudos to the city for finding that money. I know, Mr. Dallahan, you were very instrumental in doing that. We knew that we needed to do that in order to manage and maintain the safety and health of our animals. So, and our staff, having our staff working in those conditions, that's always was very difficult. And so I've appreciated that work, Mr. Dallahan, and to the city. Kudos, thank you. And that's it. That's until further notice, we will be meeting virtually. It's not the most ideal situation, and I'm really leaning on Clint to help us schedule the Zooms and have us move through those. And it's nice because I get to see staff and say hello and kind of see where the animals are and those kinds of things. So we'll continue to do Zoom, and I believe that's the first Thursday at 8:30 for those that I think, Mr. Ellens, you're a part of that. And we'll make sure that you get that Zoom meeting update. So that's it. Vice Chair Sanchez, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. Are there any questions on the Facilities Committee? Oh, doesn't look like it, so we'll move on. Ms. Gilbert for our coalition update. Oh, wait, sorry, I apologize. Commissioner Gonzalez. Commissioner, I'm not hearing your audio there. They look like you're on mute. I didn't hear that, sir. And I don't know if it's just my Zoom or if anybody heard that.
No one can hear him.
Okay. We see you, Commissioner. I just, for whatever reason, we're not hearing your voice. We're not getting anything. I
Waving it
want
off.
to send an email or a text. We can come back and follow up with it. Okay, Commissioner, like I said, if you want to send a text or a email or something, we can ask here after we can follow with a question after Ms. Gilbert's update. If that'll work. No. Well, at least while we're working through that, we'll move on to Ms. Gilbert for her update. Ms. Gilbert, are you there? Ms. Gilbert? Okay. Unless right now it doesn't look like we're getting any response there. Unless there's someone that wants to give the coalition's update as the update. Oh, I see Ms. Gilbert got off of mute there.
I unmuted her just to see if she was there, but not sure she is.
Okay. Well,
Vice Chair, I am more welcome or more willing to. I have the presentation. We can go through it really quick. I would hate for your work not to be recognized, and also for the work for those rescuers not to be recognized.
Absolutely. No, Mr. Thacker, if you're more than willing, please continue.
I'm sure I won't do as good a job as Ms. Gilbert, but I will try. Let's see. And can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. So in this presentation, we'll be looking at Las Cruces Dog Park Coalition, Las Cruces Pet Network, New Mexico Forever Homes Animal Rescue, Safe Haven, Animal Sanctuary, Spay and Neuter Action Program, Uncaged Paws, Tales from the Shelter. And this is going to be featuring organizations that are listed above. And it looks like the next meeting are going to be highlighted. So in March and April, it looks like leaders had a phone call. They drafted a volunteer handbook, drafting article for the Las Cruces Bulletin, and volunteer project for Cruces creatives. So it's great that things are continuing to move forward there. I especially interested in the volunteer handbook. Our volunteer program is always looking for options here at the ASCMV, always looking for places to better. Is it showing full screen on your side?
It is not, sir. I just see the first slide.
Oh, still the first slide?
Yeah, but not in slide show mode.
Now is it in full screen?
No.
Oh.
You are on the third slide though now. I noticed some issues, Clint, whenever the presentation is done from online. I don't know if you're able to download it real fast and then open it, but That's just a recommendation.
Oh, okay. All right, bear with me as I'm clicking and dragging. The weather today is just gorgeous, isn't it?
He's coming from Utah, so he's excited. No.
Hey, Utah's gorgeous weather right now too. They're in the mid 70s, 80s right now.
I'd take the 70s, 80s over the high 90s at the moment.
Oh, I love this. Love it great. It's refreshing. All right, so I've downloaded it. PowerPoint's coming up. My computer's having a hard time keeping up with me. Can you see it on the screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Screen share.
It looks like it's coming here. There we go.
All right, is it changed?
Yes, it is changing. We're at the dog park now.
Okay, 2 pictures of dogs. Okay. So we have 2 pictures here of dog park supporter and rehomed. I'm part of the dog park Facebook page, and they always have great information, both on what's going on at the dog parks, but also on animals that are found. And they do a great job of posting these animals and trying to get them back to the owner. It really is a group effort. And we appreciate them for doing that. Pet Networking to Save Lives, Southern New Mexico. They're helping animals like Flynn unite with their owner, Alloy, find a foster adopter, networking by email and social media. The cute pups. Forever Homes transported shelter dogs, or the animal ASCMV dogs, to Southwest Oasis, Labrador Rescue, and Tucson. We thank you for that. Safe Haven Animal Society, 2 pictures here. Pixie and Rue were adopted. Always great to hear when our furry guys get new homes. So we have a graphic here from the Spay Neuter Action Program. Why spay and neuter? We know it reduces the spraying and marking of cats. The roaming is reduced for dogs. Aggression is reduced. There's a lower chance of cancer. Decrease overpopulation is a big one. And it also increases their lifespan. So spay neuter vouchers dated January 15th through March 23rd are automatically approved for expiration date May 29th for clients. Mobile clinics scheduled for spring were canceled. And we hope if SNAP is anything like us, it's just a continued process to watch and see when the bans or the more strict things are lifted, so we're able to continue on with our processes. I know we would really love to start doing, weather's good to do another drive-through clinic, but right now we just can't. I'm not going to. So Uncaged Paws, again, is doing great stuff for us. Looks like Bo was Bones when he rescued by Uncaged Paws and a village helped with his adoption. Yeah, with his people. So thank you very much. On May 9th, there was a flight out of El Paso. 64 dogs and cats were on board. Dog is my co-pilot. Lulu's Fun, Uncaged Paws, all did some amazing things. Looks like EPAS, AAC, Trax as adoption partners. So we thank them. There's a great tribute again on Facebook to Dogs My Co-Pilot of all the animals that they've sent out of there. So we thank them very much for all that they're doing. Here is I'm Almost Home Animal Rescue. Formerly Chain Dog has a new life. And abandoned pups rescued, hospitalized, and fostered in Las Cruces. Feed the Love. Help us continue to support our communities during our community's pets during COVID-19. Now accepting pet food donations. Drive-through Pet Bank, third Saturday of every month, 11 to 1 on Picacho Avenue. And that's the Action Programs for Animals, APA. We're very grateful for all APA does, not only for the ASCMV, but also for our animals, our communities here. And may the purr be with you. Looks like Coalition for Pets and People are always looking for volunteers. There's their info. And that concludes the Coalition email or presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Thacker. I appreciate you stepping in there. I did want to add, I know you mentioned that particularly a lot of these groups in particular, because of the health emergency that's in place, haven't been able to have their normal fundraiser. So if anybody's out there that's willing within the community that can help them out, as was noted there with pet food donations or any other donations, please, they would be very welcomed. Are there any questions, I guess, on that presentation? I know you're standing in here, Mr. Thacker, but just wanted to see if there's any questions. Any discussion? Okay, very good. All right, we will move on to action items. We have one item here, the resolution for consideration 2020-13 to accept the Carol Petrie Foundation grant and Maddie's Fund grant. I guess at this time, before we begin discussion, I will entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
So move, Vice Chair Sanchez. This is Cassandra Gandara.
Very good. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
Second by Tessa.
And we have a second now by Councilor Abeta Stuvi. Very good. Becker, please proceed.
Well, it's very simple. They want to give us money, and we want to accept it. The two things on these grants are great. I was able to send it out to our staff, our coworkers, and one person in particular grabbed onto it and said that she'd like to try putting in for us. So we'd like to thank Emily Muir, our volunteer coordinator, for grabbing the Carol Pete Foundation and able to secure that $25,000. And that is, it's more of a donation where it's open. There's no restrictions on it. So we're able to put those where we can best use it. And then the other one was done by Amy. Her last name just left me.
Johnson Bassford.
What?
The city's grants person?
No, our what is it? It's Delafix, Amy Delafix, one of our
Animal caregivers.
Animal caregivers. Thank you. You see Bernice in the background. Thank you very much. So Amy Delafix, one of our animal caregivers, she took the other one, that was Maddie's Fund, and she applied for that and got the positive. We heard positive on that one, and that was for $10,000. That one is earmarked for foster care. So we have to use that one to assist our foster program. The good thing on that is it's not specifically for something in our foster program. It can be for anything. So all of our animals that are in foster to adopt that need to be sterilized, we can use those funds to help pay for those sterilizations. We're already working with area vets in hopes to get an agreement where we can have those individuals going right to a veterinarian instead of having to come to the center, and then the center can pay whatever the vets, once we get that agreement going, they're going to do. So we're grateful for those 2 grants, and I hope that the board would accept the resolution to accept them.
Okay, so we have the 2 grants, one for 25,000, one for 10,000, for a total of 35,000. Are there any discussion from the board? All right. Doesn't look like it. And I just want to, before we do a vote, roll call on this, Mr. Thacker, I did want to say I commend everyone for the work on applying for these grants and finding opportunities for the Animal Service Center that would, helps, and especially these times. So, but appreciate very much the staff for doing this. So thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Mr. Dollahan, can we get a roll call?
Yes, sir. Councillor Abedas Stuvey,
Yes.
Councillor Gondara,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellens,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez. Can I get a thumbs up, Commissioner Gonzalez? That's a thumbs up from Commissioner Gonzalez. Acting Board Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution is approved.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Dollahan. All righty. On to discussion items. And this was, I know we discussed this a little bit during the committee reports. It's a proposal to merge the ASCMV with as a City of Las Cruces department.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'll give a further brief overview. So I did email all of the board members, the county members, the presentation and the notes from the May 11th City Council meeting. It is complex, but there's some history there. The city has owned the building and the land since the 80s. The city and the county took over from the Humane Society. The city had an agreement with the Humane Society up until 2008 to operate the shelter, the center. Then in 2008, the joint powers agreement was established between the 2 governing bodies to essentially establish this board and to operate the center. It was last amended in 2012. There are some items within the joint powers agreement that are not being done. One, the city has never executed a lease or made arrangements for credit for a lease between the Animal Service Center and the city, as the city is the owner. I attribute that not to a fault of the Animal Service Center, but something that was dropped by city staff. There are also things within that lease that the city is specifically providing that is called out not to be providing. That's training, drug testing, risk management, and onboarding of employees as the fiscal agent. One of the within the proposal is to go to, if the city were to bring it into as a department, there are 2 things that we're looking at, is going to a fee for service or a fee per animal basis for reimbursement from the county. That's what is currently done with the other incorporated areas of Doña Ana County, excluding the city of Las Cruces. That is part of it. The second part of it is the way the wording is, the joint powers agreement is to disband the joint powers agreement of the Animal Service Center. It has to be through mutual discussion and mutual agreement. So that would be part of our discussion with city and county, between city and county management, to bring forward the appropriate resolutions when we're ready. As far as converting to a fee for service, We would probably not do that instantly. It would probably take a couple of years with a flat guaranteed commitment from the county, and then converting to an animal fee-for-service contract, similar to what we do with the other municipalities. We are looking at, I did a historical analysis of the budget and came up with a fee-for-service, and it really depends on the number of animals that are in the center that are brought in. And it does account for the fact that citizens and animal control officers drop off animals to the center. It's based on if the animal is known and their address is known, then it's attributed to the city or the county. If it is not, then it depends on the processes that the shelter goes through. We will gladly speak with the county management. We need to do some refinement based on the council's questions. Those notes were shared with you. The meeting of May 11th was recorded. It was a rather lengthy discussion, but it is available on YouTube and the city's internet. If you, the city's website, if you want to speak to it, I will gladly answer any questions after you've had opportunity to review it. I did include Assistant County Manager, my counterpart, Chuck McMahon, and Janine Quintero, who is also on this board as the ex-officio representative from the county, on the email that I shared with you this morning. With that, Mr. Chairman, board members, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Dollahan? Vice Chair, this is Clint Thacker, Executive Director. I don't have a question, Thacker. I just want to say thank you very much. David knows that this is important to the ASCMV. This is the kind of direction that we would like to go. And also thank you for putting together the presentation. It was very comprehensive. It was good to see. And also the city has always been very helpful to us. And where the center is also doing a lot of things to make the transition easier. Following processes, we're getting to know those processes a lot better, and we're starting to follow them. So it would be a lot more seamless on our side for that transition when it occurs. Thank you, Mr. Thacker. Anyone else on the board?
Manny,
yes, please.
You indicated that the fee for service would not kick in immediately, but it would be a basic flat rate for a year or two. Would the flat rate be the same as what we're paying now?
Mr. Chairman, Board Commissioner Ellens, I can't speak to that exactly. That's part of our discussion that needs to further refinement. I would like to think that we could propose that, but there may be some makeup at the end of the year or an adjustment that needs to happen for a little bit of deficit that may be created. And the formula that we're proposing beyond the first 2 years is where we would do the flat fee, is something based on the average number of animals that are brought in based on their geographical location. And we would probably use a 3-year average. As you'll see in the PowerPoint, there's a great variety and variation in the number of animals that are coming in. The good news is the numbers are going down. The better news is the county's animals are also going further down. But we also have to recognize there is a minimal amount of staffing and expenses associated with operating the shelter without any numbers. I know we would all like to work ourselves out of this business, but that's not realistic. And I think the new shelter will take into account the ability to house more staff. And the other part of that, the big unknown is converting the old shelter to a public spay neuter center or medical center that supports not only the animals in the shelter that are being adopted out, but provide some support back to the low-income community in partnership with one of a multitude of nonprofits that help qualify people to be determined to be low income, and then the center would probably take a voucher from them and in exchange for that voucher provide services back to a qualified family. So I can't answer that exactly today, but that needs to be part of our continued analysis and the discussion with county staff before we present to both city and county governing bodies.
When we get into a fee-for-services environment, will the fee depend upon the shape the animal comes in? For instance, if the animal needs medical treatment, would the fee be more than if we just dropped off a spray?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Ellens, I can't answer that. That's a good question. I think Clint is more knowledgeable in working in a fee-for-services environment. I could see a differentiation between breeds, between cats and dogs potentially. It becomes an administrative issue if you get beyond that. I can't speak to. I would like to see it to be as simple as possible and easy for everyone to understand, both the city and the county and ASCMV to implement, and because there's going to always have to be a reconciliation between the entities as to what animals came in when and how they came in and so forth. But I'm looking at Clint to answer your question related to the medical.
Thank you, Clint Thacker, Executive Director. It's an interesting question. I've never really been posed or asked that question before on differing fees. I can tell you in previous experiences I've had with fee or per animal charging, it's always just been a flat rate. We average out what it was, how many animals came in, and we average that out, and that would be the fee. So some animals would not take anything, it'd be a stray amount. And then some animals would require a lot more care, like you were saying. So an animal comes in with parvo might offset the animal that comes in with nothing. It returns the same day, gets adopted the same day. So it kind of washes out, but it would be a good topic to have for discussion.
I will add it to our discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? And I'll add, and I think Commissioner Ellens really hit the nail on the head. Where I think I know that we've had discussions, some initial discussions, just or at least passing conversations about this, and I think there's obviously some discussion that would be had in terms of what the fees would be, but it's just something we'll look forward to discussing a little further between the county and the city and see what we can figure out.
Commissioner Sanchez, or I'm sorry, Vice Chair.
Yes, Mr. Thacker.
The one reason why I wanted this on the agenda to talk about was to let the citizens know that this is a continual topic and we're continuing to discuss it. I get asked probably weekly on when this is going to occur and how it's going to occur, and our talk's still going on. So that was the main reason to have this on there, is to let the public know that we're talking about it. It is taken very, very seriously. And I believe it's among all the board members, that's something that we are looking forward towards. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely, Mr. Thacker, and we'll look forward to, I guess, having some continued discussions on this. And okay, we are now at public input. Bernice or Clint, did you guys receive any public input?
I have not received any, and I just checked my email and have not received any since the meeting started.
And the same on my side too. I just double checked again and I've not received anything.
Okay. All right, seeing that we have none at the moment, we'll move on to board comments. Any board members have any comments at this time?
None for me, Vice Chair Sanchez. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gondara. Okay, well, I think if there are no other comments and there are no objections, we will look to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, do we need a roll call on that?
I'll just open it up. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 We have a thumbs up from Commissioner Gonzalez as well.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.